So Morocco's Olympic participation was disastrous.
That was a mess.
Such a mess.
People are mad. People are like,
so disappointed.
Yeah, people are very disappointed.
So people really expressed a lot of negative opinions after Morocco sent about 60 athletes in its delegation and only came out with 2 medals, a gold and a bronze, the latter of which was won for a group sport, aka football. And it was such a disappointment for many Moroccans who truly believed that we could do better than that. So, what do we think?
I think the main question that everybody's asking right now is how come a nation with such a significant investment into various sports sectors somehow came out so short at the Olympics and failed this bad? Like, everybody's asking the same question. And of course, this will automatically be the responsibility of federations, federation heads, coaches, and then athletes themselves to a certain extent.
I feel like these Olympics have really given us the most backstage access to some of these athletes' struggles and processes rather than before, with like the presence of social media and so many different components. But I really think that Moroccans expected more, especially considering how other nations with smaller budgets, smaller capabilities were able to do so well, or at least in comparison to Morocco, they did really well. Which really begs the question of, what is it? Is it not enough money being put into preparing these athletes? Is it not the right people? Is it leadership? What do you think has led to this sad outcome?
I think it's an ensemble of factors. It's not just one thing that has led to this. It's on so many levels. There have been certain issues. But if we want to talk financial aspect to begin with, so Morocco has made a very substantial financial investment into growing its sports sector. It has been reported that from 2021 to 2024, 3 billion dirhams was spent on Moroccan sports. 3 billion dirhams.
That's an insane amount.
That is an insane amount of money. A lot of it went into different programs, such as the Elite Athlete Program, 2019-2018. It was designed to prepare Moroccan athletes for international events, such as the Olympics and other sporting international competitions. But it has been criticized heavily for the very low return on investment. And this has led to growing concerns about the effectiveness of these investments, and are they going through the proper channels? Are they actually being used properly? And is the money being translated in real life into something tangible that can prepare these athletes? Especially when, again, we go back to the Olympics results. How come 3 billion dirhams and not a single medal in something other than athletics and football? And even the athletics, which is usually the thing with the biggest it has the biggest shining spot in Moroccan sports. I mean, historically, it's where we won most of our medals since we started participating since 1960. But this year, and not just this year, I mean, recently we have noticed a very steady decline in Moroccan athletics. Our only shining light, our only beacon in athletics. Literally, he's the only thing we have right now in a sector that has been very well funded, that has been actually getting medals back in the day.
Yeah, I feel like we can all agree that it is not a money issue. Every single year, we watch the little finance bill come out with every single allocation. Sports are getting a lot of money out of the state, out of taxpayers. But I feel like just with every single Moroccan administration, it is always about the management of these funds, right? Especially when you consider that Morocco has a number of sports federations for each and every single discipline, around 14, including the Football Federation.
Yeah.
The budget you mentioned also includes money for the Football Federation. So some would argue, oh no, but like a lot of it is taken to football because that's like the national sport. No.
That's not the case, though.
It's not the case. Absolutely not. So it is all about management. Across 14 federations, many of them have been headed by the same exact people for the last
decade,
10, 15 years, some even 20 years in as the head of a certain sports federation. And the worst part is it's not just this year, it's their track record over that 15 to 20 years that is just abysmal and just shameful.
I feel like this year's just because the Olympics was particularly broadcast. It went viral.
You know what I
went
think?
Viral. I mean, we had the Winter Olympics just 2 years ago, and nobody really cared as much as they care right now. So I think the spotlight that this Paris Olympics has had in media has it made people ask questions like, how come?
I feel like in general, people don't really care as much about the Winter Olympics that they do the Summer Olympics, like as a whole. But honestly, you know what I think happened? I think Moroccans just started expecting more out of their athletes after the World Cup.
Absolutely.
I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like we were so used to failure that we were like, oh, it's fine, whatever. Like it is who it is. This is who we are. Like we can't really do much about it. But after the World Cup, I feel like we actually started believing that we could be.
That's because people saw that investment actually does have a result. It can have a positive result if you have the right people doing the right things. Management. It goes back to management.
Exactly. See, that's the thing. It's not even about the money. It was a bit of a
wake-up call. How come in 2022 we managed to get 4th place in the World Cup? Again, in this Olympics, we managed to get the bronze medal. And a lot of people they still feel very strongly about football this year because they still think that we should have gotten the gold. We could have gotten the gold.
Honestly.
Yeah. And I guess that automatically begs the question, why is the success only in football? Why can't we see the same thing in other disciplines, in athletics, gymnastics, etc.?
Well, first of all, we see this in a lot of the response that we're getting from fans and from Moroccans on social media and stuff. They're all saying, like, honestly, if every single federation president worked as hard as the Football Federation president, they would always like compare their presence, professional presence and media presence to the federation's president, Fawzi Al-Qja, and they would always point out how seemingly he is much more involved. There's a passion there. And it's true because
you can see it.
He has a track record of being highly involved. I mean, he started with a very small team in his hometown. He managed it. There is a track record of him truly showing that he is passionate about this position. He's not just in it for, I don't know, the
prestige
salary. Exactly. He's also delegate minister of the budget. So the duality that is often criticized when it comes to heading a federation and some other institution clearly could be done properly when you are invested in your work and you are honest in your work. So even that duality of position argument could be ignored at this point or like proven wrong by Al-Qja and the work he's done. But also, I feel like the football infrastructure is kind of like, for a while, it has been being built as an ecosystem within its own, which I think is really important.
It's taken some time. It didn't just happen overnight.
Yes, but also it's like a all-step production chain, right? I mean, we've seen it a decade ago almost with the creation of the Mohammed VI Football Academy, which obviously fosters young talent. They send out scouts all over the country to bring in the best and brightest, most promising young football players and molds them into what the national football sector needs,
Yeah.
right? There's also a lot of effort to maintain interest from Moroccan but foreign-born players outside of the country. And it's kind of like a self-oiling, very well-running machine because it's been going on for a while. But I also still would go back to the importance of a long-term vision and strong management,
Yeah.
and passionate management. Because when you see, what was his name? That federation president who did an interview recently.
The wrestling federation.
The wrestling federation
Scoot.
president.
Yeah.
I mean, for him to come up and say, I never promised you a medal. I promised you a qualification.
Ooh la la.
And when asked about his achievements or his federation's achievements, he starts mentioning like membership in international committees and international organizations of like wrestling and stuff. And I'm like, do you
He only
realize
boasts of the bureaucratic side
and his personal bureaucratic
Yeah,
achievements? Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, are you hearing yourself?
Does that translate in real life? It doesn't translate in real life.
He's been there for like 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Like around 15 years. Imagine like the echo chamber going on in that federation where he's like, oh my God, I did so well. And then it's like, I just promised you a qualification.
Well, you know, this actually brings us to the fallout following the Paris Olympics. There was this hashtag that was going viral on Twitter for several days. If I'm not mistaken, it's still trending right now as we're filming.
It better be.
It's removal of federation presidents is a popular demand. People are straight up calling for a renewal of leadership on all of the federations. Of course, the federations that didn't actually get us a podium. They're calling for
no. They don't mind a change of management in the athletics federation.
Honestly,
either.
yeah.
The only safe person is
Literally, that's who I was talking about. I was only that was a contingent only for Lqja, actually, because he's the only one whose federation is actually giving us results and tangible positive results. So people are straight up calling for these presidents to either resign or get fired or something, and they're calling for a change in leadership, a change in management. They would like to see more dynamic management, fresh ideas, better investment, like personal investment, not just financial investment.
Just some passion,
like, just show some passion.
Like, I feel like it should be a prerequisite.
Right?
Like, you have to be able to prove that you're in it for certain, because this is like sport, okay? It's not like a I don't know. It's not like a purely administrative
no,
position.
absolutely.
It's
you have to have
some thing. Like, you should think it's fun. You should think
some
it's important.
Passion, a little bit of passion just and like love for the sport. It's necessary, I think, because when you're just at the head of a federation and you're not really passionate about the sport, you're just going to be doing your administrative duties. You're just going to,
making sure you're reelected.
Yeah, that's what it's about at this point. It's no longer about what are the results that I'm gonna. It's we have a membership in so and so and a membership in this committee, and
I will retain this position for as long as I can.
He was very, very resistant to the idea of resignation. He basically said that he's not against resignation. Of course, he would resign if the situation calls for it. But I'm paraphrasing here. He basically said that. He's not going to succumb to popular pressure. That's basically what he said. And that was just, wow. Like, a lot of people just came for him after that interview. A lot of people called out the lack of ambition, really.
Right? Like, why are you the head of a federation if your goal is not a podium? If your goal is not an Olympic medal or an Olympic title? What's the goal?
It really feels like he was just trying to cover like his back and just be like, oh, this was never our goal. I never promised you a podium.
That is 10 times worse. I'm sorry. You could have taken a mic and been like, you know what?
I'm sorry.
It was really
that
rough.
would have been better.
Exactly.
Just to say,
we
sorry.
would have stomached it better. But like, to say, oh, I never promised you a medal. You guys have high expectations.
It's very condescending.
It was so dumb. Like, it's not even condescending. It's like, why are you
It's just
there?
bad PR. It's just really bad PR.
Honestly, at this point, it's like, it's complete like political and social illiteracy.
Yeah.
Because again, coming right after the successes of Moroccan football, which I mean, beyond the World Cup, like right after the World Cup,
Yeah.
they have been football in Morocco has been just on an upward.
Women's football was, I don't remember exactly what they reached in the World Cup, but our women's team also went pretty far in the World Cup. Our Olympic team, the same team
The
that
U23,
exactly the
exactly.
under 23 team is they won the Africa Cup of Nations.
Oh my God, futsal. Are we
Right?
going to talk about futsal?
Futsal is
They're
just
the
they're
world's best.
dominating. They're
The world's
dominating. They're
best.
absolutely dominating, and you can see this on many levels of football. Why can't we do the exact same thing on other things?
People don't
Especially,
want to
let's
work.
just talk
They
just about.
don't want to work.
Okay, Kim K.
Sorry, but like people just don't want to work anymore. Like they're too comfortable in their positions.
Mm,
They're too chilled out.
mm,
They're too like, oh my God, yeah, like what I am supposed to be doing in 10 years, or like in 1 or 2 years, I'm gonna do it in 10.
yeah,
Because I'm sorry, if you like you could have gotten a qualification. You've been in that seat for like 10 to 15 years. You could have
mm,
gotten a qualification 10,
yeah.
15 years ago, right? Are we got
Over this 10, 15 years, how many times could you have qualified?
like at some point you have to graduate into winning
Yeah,
eventually,
yeah.
right? Or we can talk about athlete Fatem Zahra Gardadi, who didn't go with the official delegation, went alone without her coach, no support, no team, no nothing,
And she still came at 11th.
still managed to come in at 11th
Yeah.
internationally.
Like, imagine if this woman had all of the support, all of the resources that athletes at her level are owed. Not just like we can see other athletes from other countries, like they have an entire delegation, entire coaches, like they're being pampered and imagine if she had these resources.
I honestly like just imagining it will make me so mad. I don't like look at what she did with no support,
Yeah.
right? And if we're gonna talk about sketchy sort of lack of support, we can talk about Bakari, who has his own coach and has been sort of accompanied by his own personal coach.
Yeah.
And you could see how like there is, if he has a preference for this coach who, yes, did discover him and sort of foster his talent from a young age, but the lack of homogeny.
Why did we need an independent coach to discover and nurture a talent like Al-Bakali in a country where our entire athletics federation gets a lot of money? We spoke about all of the federations and the budget that is allocated for them, and still our only beacon of hope in the athletics discipline is an independent who was discovered independently.
It's really rough to look at the state of sports in Morocco and not be sort of infuriated, right? I just don't want us to lose momentum after the wave of the Olympics dissipates, right? I mean, these people are still going to be in power if nothing is done to change it or prevent it. And I also would highly encourage young people to be more involved in sports, in structured environments. Look for how you can, if you think you're talented and you have something to give, and go look for a federation.
Don't wait for the federation to come to you.
Exactly.
Because that's not going to happen.
Do that.
That's never
we're
going to happen.
We're not going to count on it because apparently
exactly.
We just want to qualify.
Yikes. I mean, speaking of federation heads responding in a strange way to the criticism.
That's a nice way to put it. That's a very nice way to put it.
Just like trying to I'm trying not to get upset. I'm trying not to get
It's
mad.
too late for me for that, honestly.
So the Athletics Federation, whose president is Mr. Hazoun, who's also president of the Tisalat al-Maghrib group, who apparently used the company's massive budget for advertisement and to punish platforms and press and media who reported on people's disappointments and people's accusations of mismanagement and whatnot against him. He was like, oh, you're going to report on people being upset? Okay, no more Salat al-Maghrib ads for you.
Isn't that illegal?
I was about to say.
Like,
I was about to ask.
Can these people sue?
I feel like this is illegal.
If it's not, it should
I'm no
be.
lawyer.
That's for sure.
I am no lawyer. I'm no legal expert, but I feel like that should be illegal.
I honestly like this. Okay, first of all, if you are truly doing your job in a way that is integral and that is not sketchy,
yeah,
I don't think you would be this reactive to criticism.
Right? The reaction to criticism is also very telling.
Like, surtout que you got a medal. Like,
yeah, but
you
the
got
circumstances.
No, I understand. Okay, let's pretend we're dumb.
I feel like it would have been better if they hadn't gotten a medal. It's like getting a medal from that one person.
I get it. I do. But let's pretend we're stupid, right? Like, you got a medal. And there's like criticism that is not just sort of directed at you. It's directed towards all of your colleagues. All of them. And this is the
entire sports sector.
And this is
except for football is getting it right now. So
and that's your move. Like, that's sketchy.
That kind of just like brings more attention to. It makes it worse. Like, what did you accomplish by leveraging your advertisement? It's not even your advertisement. It's not your company. You're president of the company.
You're president of the administrative commission, council or something.
Right? Like, what do you accomplish by leveraging this company's advertisement against media? Do you think that media's the press is not going to report on the fact that you're basically holding ads hostage?
Like, it just really honestly shows, puts him under the worst light possible. I feel like staying quiet would have been a better response.
Staying quiet would have been a better response. A press conference would have been a better response. An interview. Scoot's response was a better response.
It's funnier, that's for sure.
I mean, it didn't really come after press freedom,
honest,
but
also. Yeah. But also, like, one of the things that I really wanted to point out is how, for instance, we had reported extensively on issues within the tennis federation, right? So, like, even if you have a leader that is somewhat passionate and, sort of does the work and all that, there are still some sort of discrepancies and mistakes that are being made on a managerial level within the federations that stifle young talent, right? I mean, we've seen this with younger tennis players who had complained about the federation and their exclusion from tournaments and so on. And I just honestly, I feel like we should start everything over. Just start it all over.
Clean slate.
Yeah. Just new, fresh people, fresh faces, fresh passions.
I mean, a lot of people are calling for, I talked about this earlier, is dynamic leadership. Fresh ideas. Younger leaders we need change. We need to see this change implemented and actually see the results. Especially, again, considering the massive investment that we as a country, as taxpayers, put into the sports sector. I mean, we can't just sit here and see the same people for over a decade in the same position with zero results. I mean, why do we have systems in place for audits and for to see a performance-based score for presidents and coaches, etc., if we're not actually going to act on it?
The sad part is that sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes the team is honest, the president is honest, right? But they are not very good at it. You know what I mean? The money is not being
It's not just
stolen.
about honesty. I completely agree with you. It's not just about honesty.
The integrity part and everything, we can discuss that when we have evidence of misplacement of funds or whatever. But I feel like some of these people just don't have the bravery that it takes to lead in a certain way.
Let's think of it this way.
But also, sorry.
Go on.
But also when it comes to investing in, for instance, youth programs, or I feel like they just expect for these ready-to-go athletes to just show up knocking at their door.
They're just going to spawn.
To win qualifiers and to be part of their campaign, which is so unrealistic. Like, your job is to go out. Surtout que it's Morocco we're talking about. Like, we love our country, but at the end of the day, we know that there are so many areas that lack sort of these sports facilities and establishments that kids could go to, that people could, that are free, for instance, public.
That's an entire debate that we can have about the access to sports to begin with. Forget about federations, forget about management and funds and investment and whatnot. Like you said, smaller towns, smaller cities in Morocco, they rarely have these facilities where children can, even if someone is like super talented. I remember being very flexible as a child and being like having an affinity for gymnastics, but I did not really have where to practice. I wanted to, but growing up, there wasn't really where I can actually practice this as a child, especially coming from a small town. How can we expect this talent to show up? How can we expect them to actually reach the results that we want from them? And people, normal Moroccans, do not have access to sports facilities.
That is one of the worst parts about the story, is that and you see it in the medal score, right? Like the international medal tracking, you're like, oh my God, the countries with the most medals are reflecting a sort of are countries that are developed, and not in a sense, in like a European sense or a westernized sense of the word, but like developed in terms of infrastructure and in terms of care of their citizens' access to facilities, to activities. Because at the end of the day, sports has historically been only accessible to a certain, like, sort of,
let's just say it, richer people.
Fine.
Let's just say it as it is.
We're hitting
a lot of
word.
Sports. If we're not talking about football and if we're not talking about running, which are two things that you can do literally anywhere, the big sports that require facilities, that require equipment, that require training and coaches and whatnot, you don't have access to it as an average middle class, lower middle class Moroccan. How are you tennis, for example? How can you play tennis in Morocco as a lower middle class person?
You can't.
It is absolutely impossible. And that's a huge part of the problem, like we said, other than the investment and the funding and the management and whatnot. This is like a massive part of the problem that really needs to be remedied. We need more facilities.
I feel like we need less sort of movies glamorizing sports prodigies that are poor, that magically make it, and just actually start, like, I don't know, building some free courts and like handing out some balls and sending recruiters everywhere.
I feel like it's starting to happen. We're starting to see it, but when it comes to like providing the access, but it's still pretty limited to the bigger cities.
Exactly. That's the thing.
You have to be in Kazar, Bat, Marrakech, whatever. If you're in a smaller city, that's it. It's done for you. You're not gonna.
That's the worst part. It's because, like, I'm sorry, but like practicing sports should be a basic right and something that we encourage our youth to do. Right? You don't have to turn professional at all. But like, as a principle, you should have access to sports and leisure activities for free.
There needs to be a democratized access to sports.
Exactly. Yes, that would be a great place to start, because you don't have to turn professional. But at the end of the day, sports are a really important part of a human being's life, especially in this day and age where we are surrounded by processed foods and office hours, where we're sitting down at a desk for 6 to 8 hours every day. And it's good for you. You need to have access to those things, right?
And it needs to be nurtured at a young age.
Yes.
It's something that we need to push younger people to do, give them access to it. And I mean, younger people kids are always looking for something to do, something to play, a lot of energy that just needs to get out.
Yeah.
And most of the time we see that energy being spent in not so, how can I say this?
On an iPad.
Yeah. On an
I'm
iPad,
sorry, but
basically, with like brain cells are being murdered on a daily basis.
yeah.
Whereas,
Or in rural Morocco, for instance, there is a lot of like the kids are running around and being super active,
mm,
but
it's not structured.
it's not structured. And I feel like there's more merit to sports. Like it teaches you a certain level of discipline.
Mm.
Um, it it teaches you consistency. And again,
It
you don't have
teaches
to
you
turn pro.
teamwork. It teaches you a lot of like
Exactly.
really
You don't
important
have to turn
principles.
pro,
Mm.
but I mean, did every pro athlete know that he wanted to go pro? Maybe in accessing those activities, you could discover like a really nice
Yeah.
passion of yours
Yeah.
and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
So like having these like public free access courts should not be restricted to smaller cities, but also I feel like federations should have sort of like a knowledge of each and every single facility this around the country that they
Yeah,
could.
absolutely. This is also going to help improve talent scouting. We're going to have this pipeline of athletes that are prepared to compete on an international level, represent Morocco in the highest and the biggest sports events. And this requires a lot of collaboration on multiple levels. Like you said, the federation, first is the federation, it needs to be aware of all schools, all local clubs, public access playgrounds, all of them. They need to be aware of them. They need to always follow up with them and see what's coming out of them.
Yeah, or even mandated personnel running the facility.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about synergies. I mean, we've seen this with football. Like there has been there's a pipeline, like you said, there's an ecosystem. And I truly believe that it's a beautiful, beautiful initiative. And
it's an example.
Exactly. It's showing its results. Although it is doing so with a restricted sort of number of kids it takes in, right? Only boys so far. So it's doing so well and it still has room to expand. So I just have a lot of faith in Moroccans and their ability to do great things like in athletics and in sports.
Oh, we have the talent. We see it all the time.
All the time. Like boxers, for instance, all of them are self-made. None of them have been like fostered or like accompanied by federations when they were still coming up. We see it in bodybuilding, for instance, which has garnered some popularity in recent years. We see it in martial arts as well.
Athletics. We go back to the athletics.
Athletics is like our...
How many people did you go to school with who were absolutely impressive runners? Like insane. I mean, I think you actually did that as a child, no? Like, I used to go to school with some people that I was convinced that I'm going to be seeing them in the Olympics. I have no idea what these people are doing. I don't think any one of them
not sports. They're not doing anything.
Not
because
sports.
Again, you grow up, you get out of that school bubble, and you realize that access to some of these activities is really restricted, or there's someone whose dad was living in a super sort of developed city, let's say Rabat or Kaza or whatever, and they know people who know of a program where you can put promising children, so they put their kids in it. And
there has to be like a list of things that need to go right in order for you to actually pursue what you're trying to pursue.
It's two things. It's either you're privileged and you have the help, which is amazing, good for you, use that privilege, or you work so hard by yourself and you build yourself from the ground up as an athlete, and then you get a federation call,
which is not even guaranteed.
You
could get a federation
you get a federation call for an Olympic campaign. And no preparation, no long-term follow-up,
you can't
no
just
nothing.
Like ask someone like, hello, hi, do you want to participate in the Olympics? Do you want to see if you're going to
qualify? They do qualifiers.
Obviously, like, you can't just be like, hi, hello, qualifiers for the Olympics, let's go. You have to have some follow-up with these athletes. You have to know these athletes before. Like, you have to know of them. You have to accompany them, see their progress. You can't just like show up one day and be like, okay, Olympics qualifiers.
We have a team. Let's go.
We have a team. Delegation. Let's go. 0 medals.
Crazy. I feel like, honestly, this whole mess of an Olympic campaign was foreshadowed by those gorgeous delegation costumes. I truly
forgot about that for a second.
Not me. I have bones to pick.
Someone said they look like taco wrappers. I can't forget about that.
Someone said they look like dqaiqiyya.
Where's the lie?
Where is the lie? Really? The laces.
Yeah. No,
okay, whatever. I feel like we should have known.
We should have known
when we saw those costumes and when we saw the football team not in that group wearing those. Anyways,
like you said, I feel like our success in the football world has kind of like been like a wake-up call. Everybody's like expecting so much right now.
As they should.
As we should. Honestly, absolutely.
It's our money.
Taxpayer money. Do you just see like in such an ugly outfit at the Olympics? This leads us to another question about transparency and accountability. Who is to blame? The blame game.
You know what? Honestly, I'm not really into this blame thing. I'm into clean slates.
Someone has to be blamed.
I'm into restart buttons. Yeah. I'm into long-term strategies that bring together a lot of stakeholders.
Voilà, in order to achieve this, there has to be an accountability for what we already have in place. We have to there have to be investigations into management, because a lot of people are calling out federations for alleged corruption. Like,
yeah, sure. That could be a step that the government takes. However, I don't want proof of corruption to have change in leadership.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying proof of corruption.
I feel like that could be like on the
side. It's just a part of it.
Exactly.
There just have to be like a lot of procedures that have to be undertaken in order to get to the restarts and the clean slate, and in order to hire more dynamic younger people with fresh ideas. And again, I have to underscore this, performance-based metrics. Please, if we are going to have performance-based metrics, we need to actually use them for something. Like, we kept changing football coaches so much because they would not have the performance that they promised. And that makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me. When somebody doesn't perform the way they were telling you that they're going to perform, especially considering funds and investment and etc., you're going to fire them and you're going to get someone new to do their job and do it better. We kept doing that until we actually hit the jackpot with the football team.
And then when we didn't, in the African
Cup of Nations,
we almost like
we ate our words.
But here's the thing. There's something I want to point out. There's what's the federation that fired all of its staff?
Boxing
Federation fired all of its staff following the Olympic results. But guess what? They do that every time.
That's what I'm going to say. And like, it's not the heads. It's the heads that need to be questioned.
Honestly, like
it's not the staff and the coaches. It's a bigger problem.
Exactly. I feel like we just need like a national strategy that is applicable to all sports, right? Follow the football model in terms of like fostering young talent. Send your people out there, send scouts, and then just from scratch, right? And maybe in the next 8 years, you could like...
But also keep track. I'm gonna die on this hill. Accountability. But
this is a form of like, here's the thing. For me, the results of these Olympics kind of are the accountability test, right? I feel like these Olympics have kind of like shed light on all of the nitty gritty and like the... Especially after the statements. That's what I mean. It's like I like to believe that something's gonna change. I really
Hopefully,
hope so.
We really hope so.
I'm just gonna stay positive, honestly. I'm gonna stay positive and say things are gonna change. But that accountability and whatever should be a continuous thing.
No,
right?
That's what I meant. Exactly. That's
in terms of like, oh, you did well this year, whatever. You did bad this year. Like, I don't care. You need to do good all the time.
There need to be clear and achievable objectives and results. And when somebody doesn't achieve them, even though they were given all of the resources to help them achieve those results, then
there needs to be a direction.
Yeah.
And we see that in so many sectors. We see that in but we don't see it in sports, unfortunately, and it's really, really sad. But yeah, here's to hoping next time we talk about this, it's to announce some shifts.
Hopefully. Next time we talk about this is to talk about some gold medals and some podiums that we dominated. So to wrap it up, as we said, the Paris 2024 Olympics was a wake-up call for Moroccan sports. While the failure was pretty evident, it also presents an opportunity for change. So by learning from our successes, such as the Atlas Lions and football, Morocco can build more resilient and effective sports infrastructures. We have the talent, we have the passion, we have the resources. All we need right now is the will to actually make the necessary changes. So thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, leave a message in the comments telling us what you think about Morocco's Olympics performance, what you would like us to talk about next time, and tune in for our next episode of Spill the Tea. Bye.